What's up, everybody? Welcome to Altogether Alright. I'm Brandon, the creator of this channel. Thank you for stopping by and watching this video. I have bipolar disorder. I'm going to give you 5 things today that I have learned and helped other people learn that have bipolar disorder. Now to start, I really need to focus on that. This is my experience. These are the things that I have learned, and I've tried to solidify what I've learned through my professional and academic training. But again, my experience is mine, yours is yours. I consider myself fully functional. I essentially consider myself not bipolar right now. And the reason is because I take the medication that I'm prescribed, and I've gone through all the therapy that, at least at this point, I feel I need to be as functional as possible. So, if that's something that you're looking forward to, take this advice in mind, and maybe it'll help you. But again, your experience is yours. Right now, I'm a professional video marketer. I work for a company that helps adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I also work with a company that they own that does counseling and several other different things, just a mixed bag. I'm also a clinical mental health counseling student. I have 2 more years. I'm starting my practicum in about a year, and I will be hopefully becoming a professional counselor in about 2 years. Hopefully one of the things that's really unique about this channel is that it's hard for somebody with a mental health disorder, especially one like bipolar disorder, to go to school and to become a professional in the mental health field. So my job in this channel is to bring you the absolute best information from both worlds, from having a mental health disorder, as well as knowing how to treat them as best as I possibly can. For number 1, the first thing you need to know, or I think you need to know, is that actually getting the diagnosis of bipolar disorder is extremely difficult, especially under the age of 18. And it took me a while, and I had to do a lot of my own research and studying and advocacy. But I also had to do it very cautiously. And that's probably number 1, is how cautious you have to be when looking for your disorder diagnosis. There's a reason that professionals are wary and skeptical of somebody coming up with their own diagnosis, or especially asking for a diagnosis. And it's because people come up with preconceived ideas of what disorders are, whether they're good or bad or scary or not scary, those kinds of things. And so coming up with the information and presenting that to a professional and saying, this is what I think I have, they're usually going to be pretty off-put by that. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be your own advocate. You should, but you should do it the right way. A theme you will find in videos forward and essentially in my life is that we need to be skeptical of all of our ideas, everything that we come up with, and all information that we decide to live by. That includes trying to figure out your own diagnosis. The last thing you need to know about that is you can be wrong, and so can other people. And that's okay. And there are reasons that we can be wrong that are better than others, or whatever you want to say. That's fine. Point being is you can be wrong. You can do all the research that you need to do to figure out what disorder you might have, or diagnosis or no diagnosis, and you could be wrong. So in the beginning, I just looked up a bunch of disorders that I thought I had, and I was so wrong. I was vastly wrong. I had very little information on what mental health disorders were. School didn't teach me that. And so I just looked up stuff, and I figured this probably sounds like it works for me. Didn't really look at the symptoms. Not a great way to try and figure out what's going on with you. It wasn't until my counselor actually sat through a session with me trying to figure out what disorders sounded like they might be accurate. So she pulled out her DSM, and we sat and we went through all the things that she thought I might qualify for. Even if she didn't think I did, we sat down and read it because I would have an opinion that she absolutely would not have in my life. I have the most information. She has a lot of information on how to get me there. But all in all, it was a cooperative effort. And I suggest that that's what you do. You bring a cooperative effort to psychiatry or to counseling to get you to where you need to be. Another thing is, when I took that information and I started looking up the disorders after my session, I made sure that I was checking multiple sources. I was always making sure that I was looking at different web pages, especially ones that had scientific or government weight. I know government sounds scary. No, for real, like the NHBI, the NIBH, National Institute of Mental Health. The NIMH. I looked at the NIMH, I looked at mental health awareness sites, I looked at a lot of information. I tried to get it from other people that are professionals. You're gonna find blogs, you're gonna find videos, you're gonna find many different things that don't hold as much weight in their information as they do to somebody that studies this stuff or works with it. So just bear that in mind. Last thing I'm gonna say about diagnosis is even if you believe that you have a particular one and your therapist or your psychiatrist, after working together, they decide or they believe that you have something that you don't believe you have, I'd probably just go with it for a little while. Try the treatments that they suggest. A lot of times they're right. They have a lot of experience in it. They have a lot of training behind them. But if it's wrong, they'll admit they're wrong and you can move on probably to what you thought. If it becomes increasingly difficult, bring in family or friends. They probably have a perspective that you don't have on you and your behavior. It's especially helpful with bipolar disorder because we can get a little bit out of our own head and out of touch with who we are, and we don't have the best thinking, depending on the state that we're in. Number 2, medication is probably going to be really, really, really important for you, your treatment, and your recovery. And you're probably going to have to take it for a while. Yes, it's very true. There are side effects. There are different things that happen with medication that really just suck. But what I've learned over the years is that if you take medication, especially for an extended period of time, a lot of the side effects become minor or completely go away entirely. And it's very well worth it. So my suggestion, if you're taking a medication that has some pretty heavy side effects, as long as they're not super debilitating, I would try it for at least 3 months. Usually after 3 months, you're probably going to start to see at least a decrease in whatever those side effects are. And you're going to know, okay, I can push on with this and hopefully take the good effects that are happening and it outweighs the side effects. Another thing, from my personal experience and having worked in a mental health hospital, stopping your medication is not a good idea, especially if it's already working for you. Your symptoms will most likely come back and they might even be worse than before. What makes this extremely difficult as well is that usually your first state when you're bipolar and you stop your medication is mania or hypomania. And that feels really, really good. And it sometimes solidifies the thought that I don't need this medication. I don't think that that's right. And I always urge you to talk to your doctor before you choose to do that at all. And making sure that you have several different appointments lined up already just in case something is going awry. Last thing you should know about medication is that if you choose not to take medication, a lot of times, depending on what your situation is, again, it's mostly a biological disorder, just in case you didn't know, but it's going to get worse. So if you stop taking medication, it's likely that the mania will continue to get worse, or the depression will continue to get worse, or both, or you'll start to have mixed episodes, suicidal ideation, any number of different things that are extremely bad for your life. The other thing is that permanent damage can be done when you enter these different extreme states, especially mania. The more that your brain is active in a manic episode means that you are solidifying that particular route that your brain decides it needs to think. So you could have persistent psychosis or delusions, or just in general troubles distinguishing reality from your own perceptions. Number 3, so you're probably going to have bipolar disorder for the rest of your life, unless they do some really interesting research down the road and they find a cure for it. Bipolar disorder probably means that you're going to end up taking medications for an extremely long time or until the day you die. I had to work through this with several different therapists over a long period of time just to come to the idea that it's okay. And what I would really suggest looking at it as is not I have to take medication forever or I won't be normal ever. It's more that you're going to be keeping up on treatment for a long time. And that treatment will probably continually progress you to a better functioning level over your life. And you're going to make huge strides in the beginning and little strides at the end. But if you keep up on that treatment, you're going to be happy and functional. I'm extremely happy and functional. So take that as an example. It's not saying everybody's going to get there. Everybody has a different experience. There's not a whole lot of medication out there right now that can really treat everybody. So take into account that there are going to be multiple different routes that you have to try, and it might take a while. Always have an active psychiatrist as well, because if your medication starts to taper off and how much it's working, which happens because the brain gets used to that medication, you're going to need somebody there to help you switch real quick so that you don't end up losing out on your job or school or your marriage or whatever big things are happening in your life that you want to keep. Always have a therapist as well, because sometimes your therapist is going to get you through things that medication can't. If you think of medication and different types of previous therapies that you've taken as building a dam, well, that water, if it floods, can cross over or it can break the whole dam in the first place. And you don't want to go through that. So make sure you have somebody there to help work through the stuff that maybe your medication isn't great at helping through. Lastly here, you should know that you should always have a bug out plan or a crisis plan. Essentially, if things start to crack and break and whatever's happening, you need to have some stuff set up behind you ready to go so that you have the least impact on your long-term life possible. Hopefully, by sticking to treatments, having a psychiatrist, and having a therapist all the time, you can avoid having to use a crisis plan. But just in case, make sure you're saving money just in case you lose your job or you end up in a position where you can't work for an extended period of time or even just a couple of days. Check into Medicaid and other medical insurance options just in case you lose your job or you don't have one to begin with, so that you have something there at all times ready to take care of your medications, your psychiatrist visits, your therapist visits, and possibly ER visits in case you need it. Always keep a helpful support group around you, whether it's an actual mental health group or good friends and family. Whoever can take a look at your behavior and say, things are going in a direction that I'm just not sure is good for you. And you can make the decision as to whether or not you need to seek treatment. All right, this is weird, but notify your employer of your disability. There are laws that protect you that if you actually properly tell them that you have a disability, they should offer you reasonable accommodation, and they cannot discriminate against you. They can, however, if you're in a situation where you can't perform any of the duties that you were supposed to, which wouldn't matter if you told them that you had a disability or not, they can lay you off. Number 4, alcohol makes everything a little bit worse with bipolar disorder. At no point would I ever believe that any of you that have bipolar disorder that are watching this should or would give up alcohol, considering I haven't even done it myself. But what I would suggest instead is that you remember that alcohol is most likely going to bring back some amount of symptoms, especially depression. Alcohol in bipolar disorder, even if you're fully treated with your medications, is likely to trigger some amount of extra sleepiness. It might make you harder to wake up in the morning, and it's more likely to make you feel depressed the next day. It also can increase irritability and other issues while you're actually drinking the alcohol, which could have an effect on your daily life. Simply know your limits and know how to drink in moderation so that you don't run into the issue where you have excessive amounts of alcohol that are ruining the effectiveness of your drugs and can break that dam that I was talking about earlier. Now lastly, number 5. This is a hard one for me to say. You need to be extra wary about advice that you're getting from people that have bipolar disorder. I am a part of a Facebook bipolar disorder support group, and a lot of people are extremely helpful to everybody that is asking questions, but at the same time, there's been some bad advice that I've seen that other people are actually appreciative of, and that seems wrong to me. Part of the whole reason that I'm even making this YouTube channel is because when I go to YouTube and look up mental health or bipolar or help or advice for people with mental illness, I run into a lot of people that are not professionals, that they're just people experiencing it at the time. And everybody's in a different situation and everybody's at a different point in their treatment process. And it's extremely hard to ask somebody for advice when they haven't even actually handled their treatment process to the end result as well as other people have. With bipolar, this becomes even a little bit more troublesome because it's hard to tell when some people are manic, especially when they're typing behind a keyboard. You're not going to see all the behaviors that are automatic clues as to where they're at in their episode. And people with mania aren't thinking as clearly as other people would, and a lot of times they've just quit medication, and that's part of the reason that they're manic. They might tell you that it's a good idea to quit your medication. We talked about that earlier. It's probably not a good idea. So be very wary of people who are in a mental health situation giving you advice, especially if they're in a manic episode. Those are times where you take the advice and you simply say, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm going to bring it to my professional and we will figure it out as a team. Go to your professionals. Go to your psychiatrist, go to your counselor, ask them if it's a good idea or if it works for you. Another suggestion, no matter how good an option sounds from anybody giving you advice, whether they have a mental illness or not, never give up on a treatment that is already working for you. Always talk to your psychiatrist. Always talk to your counselor. Tell them what you're thinking, why you like the option of another treatment. If it's working for you, it's probably the best thing to stick with that. Everybody is vastly different and everybody's brain chemistries are vastly different. So even a person with bipolar 1 like me who takes Seroquel as my main medication, that Seroquel doesn't work for somebody else and they may have to take Lamictal or a mood stabilizer or something that's not even in the same class as Seroquel. It's just, it depends on who you are, what your situation is, what your brain chemistry is, and you have to work that out for yourself. Nobody's advice is going to actually tell you exactly what you need to do. It's just good ideas to hopefully bring up in your team discussion. So that's it. Those are the 5 things that I have learned with bipolar disorder and working with people that also have bipolar disorder. They are very helpful, hopefully, for people that have that. But if you don't have bipolar disorder, you probably can still benefit from some of the general ideas. So take it with a grain of salt. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Have you already thought of this stuff? Have I maybe swayed you to continue certain treatments or stop certain treatments based on what you need to know? And do you like the idea of this channel? Do you like the idea of somebody who has a mental health disorder and also works trying to help people overcome their mental health issues? Is that something that appeals to you? Thank you for watching this video. Please absolutely subscribe to this channel. I will be pushing out new content regularly. You're going to see a lot of stuff on mental health, but another big focus of this channel is going to be just controversy, politics. How do you think about the world and the different things that happen in it? How do I come up with a stance? How do I evaluate whether some information is better than others? That's a huge factor in treating your own mental health, but it's also extremely helpful in living just a good life, a good, well-educated, well thought out, well planned life.